The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great day, and thank you for joining our webinar, Top 10 Homeschooling Secrets to Ace Standardized Tests like the SAT, ACT, and PSAT. I'm Letty Swank, and I work for the Co-op, and I'd like to welcome Jean Burke, who will be our speaker today. I might be a little scratchy on the voice, so I apologize for that, but I'll be turning it over to Jean soon, so you'll only have to listen to me for a few more minutes. Jean is the author of College Prep Genius. You might recognize her from being a featured speaker at many of the homeschool conferences. Jean is also a nationally known college prep expert who has helped tens of thousands of homeschool families get ready for college. And we should mention that Jean homeschooled both her children, who each received incredible scholarships because of their PSAT and SAT scores. Lastly, Jean is also a contributor and has appeared on Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, as well as the Homeschool Channel, as well as other media outlets. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. The webinar is scheduled for the next 75 minutes, so we have plenty of time for questions after Jean's presentation. Since everyone who has joined in is in listen-only mode, please feel free to chat your questions in the question box. Also, during the presentation, Jean may ask you some questions, so please use the chat box for those comments. And now I'll turn it over to Jean. Welcome, Jean.
Thank you, Letty. Can everyone hear me okay? We're just having a little issues with static. So if you can hear me, please make a note in the chat box right now. That way we can make sure we start off on the right foot. Okay.
So
the chat box is right on the right side under the attendees. At least on my screen it is. Letty, are you getting anybody on your end? I'm not, no one's.
Yes, they're answering in the question box, so we're good. People can hear you fine.
Oh, okay. They're answering. Okay, so I don't get the question box. Okay, perfect. All right, so if you're answering something, I can't see it, so just bear with me. Great, well, thank you. I'm so excited for coming. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen in. Why don't you notate where you're from, what state? I'm coming from the cold, rainy state of Texas today, so let me know where y'all are coming from. Letty, you'll have to tell me because I can't see them, unfortunately.
Yes, we have people from Illinois, New Mexico, Virginia,
awesome.
Michigan.
Illinois.
Looks like awesome. All over.
Well, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Well, I am excited about talking about the top 10 homeschooling secrets to ACE test scores or standardized tests. We're going to talk about several of them today. And one of the things is that, you know, over the years, probably the last 14 years that I have been teaching test prep, I've learned a lot of things. And some of them are kind of hush-hush. Some of them, there are people who don't want me to tell you these things, so which makes me even more excited to tell you. So I really want to give you a lot of information today. I do talk kind of fast, so bear with me, but I do want to get you a lot of information. I love the fact that you know, I can share this information that I've learned, and I'm going to just be able to do that today. Let me get my screen to work in here. Oops, come on, screen. Okay, why aren't you moving? Okay, technology, it's a kind of a love-hate thing. My screen is not advancing for some reason. Oops. In the meantime, while I'm working on my screen, oh, there we go. All right. As Letty said, these are just some of the TV shows that I've been on. And I am blessed to be a Fox News contributor, so I do get to do a lot of radio as well. And so, okay, I apologize, but my screen is not advancing for some reason, and I'm not sure why. Let's see if I can do this. Okay. All right. Nobody wants to stare at CBS and ABC. All right, come on. Click on OK to terminate the program. All right, I don't know what that means. All right. Lady, can you see? Oh, no, you're in. Okay, there we go. Okay. So if you love more tips on free college, by all means, you can go to my website, which of course is collegeprepgenius.com, and we'll get you some more tips to sign up. And I'd love to tell you how to get free college. By the way, how many of you out there would love to get free college or get major scholarship money? Just kind of put that in the chat box if that's something that you're looking for, something that you're interested in. Kind of a quick background of where I'm coming from. About 14, 16 years ago, my son Josh was in 9th grade, and we literally had no money for college. And, we really wanted our kids to go to school, but, with no money, there was nothing we could do. And my friend mentioned to me that there was free college based on test scores. So with my son Josh, we started going through the tests and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And ultimately, he became a National Merit Scholar, and we ended up throwing away 7 trash bags of college offers. And this was an everyday, my mailbox was stuffed full of letters that were offering him things like full ride, free tuition, room and board, grad school, and so forth. So then my daughter got free college, and my friends wanted to know what we did. And about 14 years ago, I wrote a book and started a class. And so I've been doing that ever since. And so that's kind of my background. So if you're, being a homeschooling family, you're generally one income, and there's not a lot of money left over. And so that's the boat that we were in, and maybe a lot of you are in that same situation. But so as I started getting into test prep and teaching kids on how to ace these tests, I started learning more and more, especially a lot of the secrets I'm going to share with you today. So I want to start off with defining the three main tests. The SAT is created by the College Board. It is a test used to get into college as well as for scholarship money. The PSAT is also created by the College Board, and it is only used for the National Merit Scholarship Program. And then the ACT is created by the American College Test, and it is also used to get into college and get scholarship money. So that's kind of defining the 3 tests. Now I want to talk about the top 10 homeschooling secrets to ace these tests. First of all, it's really important to know that these standardized tests are not about IQ. They really are logic tests. They're not about the curriculum that your child uses. And the reason why colleges use tests like an SAT or an ACT is because a 4.0 at one high school is not the same at another. Every school weighs and calculates their scores differently. So the only fair way a college can compare all students or level the playing field is using a test like an SAT or ACT. We get valedictorians in our classroom all the time that have bombed these tests. And the reason why these questions on these tests are purposely misleading, and the wrong answers are very tricky, and they're really easy to pick. But honestly, what they're doing is they're testing your critical thinking skills or how well your child can answer questions under pressure. Now, both the SAT and ACT makers, they use these very misleading phrases on their own respective websites. They'll say things like, on the ACT it says, these tests are all about measuring what you learn in high school. Or the SAT's website says, this is about what you learn in high school. Again, don't be fooled by that, because these are logic tests. And pretty much the main reason why students, no matter how smart they are, the reason they cannot finish these tests is because of the time constraints. It's the biggest complaint that I hear, because you only get around a minute per question. So if a student were to approach the test like a school test and think that they have lots of time, they're not going to do as well. Now, here's the good news. Every question can be answered in 30 seconds or less. And I'm going to show you some in a moment, and you'll see for yourself. But the good news is these tests are objective, which means there's only one right answer. So they're beatable tests. They're learnable. Once a student can learn the recurring patterns on the test, then they can beat this test. Now, notice right here, this is kind of give you a little bit of example. This is an SAT and ACT overview of the time of the test. Now, notice right here, you've got 36 seconds a question, or 52 seconds or 47 seconds. So if you look at this, you can see why most students do terrible. Even if they're really good in math, but they spend 3 minutes on a math problem, they're obviously going to run out of time. So this is going to kind of show you why you have to know how to answer the questions quickly. Otherwise, you're not going to get the best possible score. Now, let's talk about the real truth when it comes to SAT versus ACT. And I have to tell you, this is probably one of the biggest questions that we get all the time. People will call us or they'll come by our booth and say, well, what about the SAT or ACT, or, you know, which one should we take? Well, the good news is that every single college, 100% of all colleges will take either one. It does not matter. No matter what anybody tells you, you can look that up, and you can even ask the colleges. So it doesn't really matter. Now, the good news is they are about 99% the same test. The reason why is you look at the formatting now, and you're going to find there's not a lot of difference, and there's an easy crossover information. Both are logic tests, and both are testing thinking skills. And once you've got that toolbox of learning how to take a test, you can apply that to so many other tests. Now, both SAT and ACT have a free test on their website, so you can always go on their websites and download one and have your child take both of them, certainly on different days, but definitely do that. And even though the ACT has science on it and the SAT does not, sometimes people will base whether they take one test based on science or not. The good news is you don't even have to know one iota of scientific knowledge to ace the science section, because the science section on the ACT is like the reading section on the SAT. So again, don't base your child whether they're good or bad in science on which test you're going to take. Both tests still get you around a minute per question. Now, sometimes students will say, well, why should I take so many tests? Why should I, take SAT or ACT? Well, the good news is that basically taking both tests can actually end up getting you more money. Now, even though every college takes either one, if they prefer one test over the other, what they'll do is they'll convert the score. So, for example, if your child took the SAT and got a 1340, that is the same as a 29 on the ACT, or vice versa. So again, it doesn't really matter. But what happens very often is one more point, let's say on your ACT, could give you another $20,000 in scholarship money. So that's why it's important. This is a conversion chart that you can just, I have one on my website, but you can Google it as well. It'll kind of tell you, if you score one test, what would it be converted to on the other test. So that's always good to know. Now, there are 13 opportunities nationally to take the SAT and ACT. So you have lots of opportunities to go in there and get your best score. So don't let it be like a one-shot deal or put all your eggs into one basket, because sometimes, and this is kind of a cool thing that I learned that people didn't know about, and there are some colleges that will give more money on one score over the other one. So if you have this conversion score chart here, you can actually take it in with you, and when your child has a certain score on one test, if they'll give a better money on the other one, just ask them to convert the score. Oops, I don't know why it's taking too long to convert. Sorry about that. Now, one of the reasons why people, and again, another little known secret, is the reason the SAT and ACT are so similar is in 2012, when David Coleman took over for the College Board, back when, there was a big hype about the Common Core and all of that, people didn't realize that really SATs and ACTs are just logic tests. Well, David Coleman noticed that in 2012, it was the first time in history that more students took the ACT rather than the SAT. First time in 70 years. Well, he, being a smart man, hired a bunch of ACT writers to rewrite the SAT. This is why the tests are so similar now. And that's why common strategies and techniques work on both tests. I've got students who've got National Merit Scholar on the PSAT, and then they've got a 35 on their ACT, and they only use the exact same program. So don't be fooled by trying to do a couple of different things when really what works on one pretty much is going to work on the other, because there is that crossover of information. So again, regardless of whether your child takes SAT or ACT, the techniques themselves and the standardization of the tests are so similar that once you learn the designs of a test and the recurring patterns and rules that the test makers use, then you can apply that to so many different tests. Now you'll notice right here the similarities and the minor differences in the SAT and the ACT. As you can see, ACT has 5 answer choices now, and the SAT only has 4. The grammar sections and writing sections test the same thing. Math pretty much tests the same thing. There's no grid-ins on the ACT. Like I said, the science on the ACT is very similar to the SAT writing. Probably the biggest difference really is the essay. The ACT essay is a persuasive response, which is very similar to the old SAT essay, which is now analytical. Now, one thing that's very interesting between the two tests is you'll notice is that the ACT averages the scores, but the SAT does not. And you can take the ACT only 12 times total, but the SAT you can take unlimited times. So, you know, again, some minor differences, but as far as formatting, very, very similar. Now, one of the cool things about taking the test many times is the fact that you can get your best score just by simply using these 2 simple techniques or simple strategies. And that is the fact that most students only take the SAT or ACT anywhere from 1 to 3 times. And they tend to do it later in high school years. But based on the simple strategy called SuperScore, it means that most colleges will take the highest scores from different tests. So let's say your student took an SAT in the sophomore year and got a really great reading score, and then took the SAT again in the junior year and got an amazing math score. Well, most colleges will take the highest scores from different tests and combine them together for a composite score, which is known as a super score. And another cool, simple strategy that I love is called score choice. And what this is where you, the parent, get to decide when to send the scores in. So in other words, you don't have to send every score in to every school until you're ready to do that. This is why we have lots of young students, 6th and 7th and 8th graders who do our program, because they know there's no pressure on them and they're just going in there and getting familiar with the tests. So this is why I'm such a big believer in starting early, putting time on your side. My students who start early tend to be the ones who have the highest score raise, they get the most money, and they go to the best colleges. So, you know, as a homeschooling mom myself and knowing what I know now and what I share with everyone is please incorporate some type of test prep into your school, even at a young age, because it will literally take the pressure off the kids later on, and it ultimately can, you know, maybe end up being 7 trash bags of college offers for your family like it was for ours. So your decision is not the finances, but your decision becomes the institution or where your child gets to go because of all the offers. Now, homeschooling secret number 3 is that the PSAT is not a practice test. I'm still hearing this. I hear it from families. I hear it from counselors. But the P in PSAT does not stand for practice. It stands for preliminary. And the full name is PSAT/NMSQT, or National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. So this one test, it becomes an amazing open door to just about any school that you want to go to. And the reason why it's a bragging rights for schools, for universities to have national merit scholars there. They're looking for the scholars. They're looking for those students because they really want to make themselves look good, and they're willing to, you know, roll out the red carpet and give you amazing scholarships based on it. Now, I'm a big believer in starting your students early in for the PSAT. Now you can start them as early as 4th grade, believe it or not. But at the very minimum, have your 8th and your 9th grader take the PSAT 8-9. Now it's offered at schools. You need to call around to the different schools and see what time of year they're going to offer it. The good news is it doesn't count. And the fact that they get that familiarity about the school setting and the environment, plus you get their school booklet, the test booklet back in the mail, and that way you can go over their weaknesses. Now the PSAT 10 for the sophomores, again, doesn't count, and you get your booklet back. Now the junior year is offered in the 3rd week of October. It's always the 3rd week, so you can find the dates on the College Board website. But that's when it counts in the junior year. But like I said, the incredible perks that we received were anything from a full ride to room and board to grad school money, honors dorms, $5,000 spending cash, study abroad stipends. You know, how many of you out there would love to study abroad somewhere or love your kid to study abroad? You know, my kids are blessed to do that, not only in Costa Rica, but also in Austria. So schools are willing to do that for your child to get them to come to your school. Now, if you want to learn how to interpret the percentiles of the PSAT score, they have a booklet online. You'll notice to the right here, this is a screenshot of the booklet, but you'll notice the scoring is as low as 320 to 1520. The ideal goal is to get into the 99 percentile. Now, it's going to vary depending on what state that you live in. But once you get that test booklet back, you'll be able to go over their weaknesses and their scores to find out what you need to work on before the junior year. Now, every state's going to be different. I've got a link, if you will go to collegeprepgenius.com/predicted PSAT scores, and PSAT is capitalized. It'll give you the list of schools scores for your state. So for example, here in Texas, it's about a 1450 or above to get that national merit range. And so you definitely want to go check out your state to see, you know, what your child needs to hit and shoot for in the junior year. Now, one of the things that really is frustrating to me as a speaker and someone who has taught many people to get free college is the fact that a lot of times I'll go to some of the middle states and the families will tell me that, you know, we only do the ACT here. Our schools only promote the ACT. And unfortunately, what's sad about that is it's such a disservice to the students because they're not telling the students that every college takes SAT or ACT, so it really doesn't matter. But when they don't tell them about the SAT, they don't tell them about the PSAT, which means those states have some of the lowest PSAT scores, cutoff scores, which, by the way, is good for those of you out there who live in one of those states, because that means once you find out about it, then your child has a better chance of, you know, doing well and getting the national merit scholarship. But like here's some examples. Like I said, Texas was 1450, Florida 1420, Missouri 1400, Ohio 1420. But that one link I said, the predicted PSAT scores, we can show you what your state actually is known to have for the cutoff score. Now, the great thing about the PSAT, if you would promote the SAT, you would also promote the PSAT. And if you're preparing for one test, you're preparing for the other, or you're over preparing for the other. And the only difference between the SAT and the PSAT is really just 15 minutes. There's 15 minutes less on the PSAT. There's no essay, and of course there's less math. So that's why I'm such a believer. If you've got young students, please start them on the PSAT. It literally can change your life. You know, for our dilemma went from absolutely no money for college to where in the world should my son go because he has so many offers. And that can happen to you. That's not just, you know, we're nobody special. And that was just simply based on a test score. Now, I want to talk about some dirty little secrets that these test prep companies have. And again, I love sharing this information because I don't like people being taken for, and I see it happening all the time. And so I want to dispel some of these things that a lot of these companies are doing, so that you are on your guard and so that you are well aware that we've always tried to be a company of integrity. And when I hear about things that other people do that are, unscrupulous and just, sneaky, it really frustrates me. So I like to let everybody know. But what happens is, one of the things that a lot of the test prep companies will do is, instead of using actual real test questions by the College Board, or if they're given an ACT by the American College Test, what they'll do is they'll make up their own test questions. And what they'll do is they'll give a student a diagnostic test that is very, very hard. So they might offer a free test at the library. The student will come in, get a horrible score, and then the company sells them on some $4,000 or $5,000 program, and then they'll go through the program, and at the very end, they'll give them an easy test, a completely different test that they made up with their own test questions. So what you've got is very deceptive results, very very sneaky kind of roundabout way of saying, hey, look what you did. You went up 300 points after using my program. But be aware, the only way to get a true baseline score, and the only way to really know that your child has improved, regardless of what program they use, is to actually take a College Board test before they do a program, and then retake that exact same test after they finish the program. We've seen probably our average kids over the years, and we've taught tens of thousands of kids, probably average about 250 the first time through the program. Now some have gone up as much as 600 points, but once you go back through it again and you hear it 2 or 3 more times, you kind of start to solidify the information and start internalizing the strategies, and then you go up another 100 points or another 100 points. So just be aware, if you're having your child do any test prep program, always use actual College Board questions from their website. Now let's talk about the dirty secret, very little secret number 2. Well, one of the things about test prep companies, and there's so many of them out there, and I don't speak bad about anybody, I don't name any kind of names, but I do know that many of them are in the upper hundreds into several thousands, and I've seen a couple of them in the 5-digit figure, which to me blows my mind. I cannot believe that. I mean, if you spend $5,000 on a program and it doesn't work, you're out $5,000. If you spend a couple $100 on a program and it doesn't work, that doesn't set back most families financially. So I've seen this, and I was in New Jersey, and there was a guy who took my class, and he said that they spent $10,000 on private tutoring, and his score went down. But sadly, that's not the only time I've heard that kind of story. So be very careful. But because there's so many companies out there and they're very, very competitive, one of the things that they do to kind of influence the consumer or the parent is to use testimonials. And I myself have many testimonials, thousands of written testimonials, and I got lots of video testimonials as well on my YouTube channel. But what I wanted to say is be very careful of testimonials that are not real. And what I mean by that is, there are companies that what they do is they will buy zip codes, PSAT scores in certain zip codes. So for example, I could go and let's say I wanted to buy the zip codes of Fort Worth, Texas, of all the students who scored on the PSAT in the sophomore year. Well, what these companies will do is they'll spend a few $100s and buy a certain zip code, and they'll find the students that have already scored high on the sophomore PSAT. These are students who are good test takers. These are students who are probably going to do well anyways. It's just kind of intuitive to them to see patterns, and they'll offer those students free prep classes. And then what happens is the next year when that student takes the PSAT as a junior, and let's say they get somewhere around the national merit range, then what this company will do is they'll brag about how that this student came from their classes, when in reality these students already scored high. So what you've got is a bunch of inflated scores in statistics that aren't real. that didn't necessarily come from their company. And you know, myself and being someone who loves to help kids get free college, my thought would be, wouldn't it be better if you offered free test prep to the kids who scored the lowest? Wouldn't that really show your integrity? But unfortunately, that's not how it is. So keep that in mind. You know, we teach in a lot of Title I schools where most of the kids are on free or reduced lunches, and we teach for a very nominal fee because the school pays for it. And we find that these kids are some of the most thankful kids that someone took an interest in them. Certainly, it wasn't one of these very expensive programs that came in there because they weren't about to drop their price to a low amount for them. But they are very, very thankful, and I love that. All right, test prep company's dirty little secret number 3, and that is known as kickbacks. This is where a lot of schools, at least in our area, and I've known it in other areas as well, will give very expensive prep schools some kind of financial incentive to only promote their program. So if they might be a $3,000 or $4,000 program, and they'll say to these companies, hey, we'll promote you only, and then you give us X amount of money back for every kid that comes through us to go to our sports department or to our PTA or whatever. So you've got a lot of under the table money. And what happens is these families don't know any better, and they spend this kind of money because the schools are promoting it, and they're thinking, well, my school's promoting it. It's obviously a good program. Sadly, many of those students will come to my class that we hold in some of the areas around the area and tell me, you know, how they spent a lot of money and it didn't work. And I get sad for the families because I've met single moms who tell me that they used these programs and the scores didn't change, and it's unfortunate. What it does too for companies like myself who have very low prices, it keeps us out of the schools. And we have some very, very wealthy school districts that want my program in the school, but their hands are tied because of all the politics, and they won't let us come in. So it's very unfortunate for their students. And very interesting, one of the questions that I get all the time is, well, why would I pay for a prep class when the Khan Academy has free test prep? Well, let's talk about the real reason why the College Board partnered with the Khan Academy to validate any claims and to save the reputation. Well, the College Board was getting a lot of grief from people who said, you know, only the rich kids can actually get high scores because they're the only ones who can really afford one of these expensive programs. So, you know, you don't look so great, and, you know, you're telling everybody this is about curriculum and what you've learned in high school, yet it's not reflecting against someone who's a great GPA to have a low test score. So what College Board did is they partnered with Khan Academy, which has already been around, and they were already offering free test prep on their site. So it was nothing new. Now, I want to tell you that Khan Academy is a great resource for subject matter. So if your child needs to brush up on some geometry or some algebra or something, it's great. Go on there and do that. But don't use them for test prep. Their test prep that they've been using for years does not teach shortcuts. It doesn't teach the students how to answer every question in 30 seconds or less. No shortcuts, no strategies, no techniques. They're just going to work out every problem the long way, which of course, as you know, as we talked about earlier, you're going to run out of time because you basically get around anywhere from 36 seconds to 47 to 52 or more seconds. So that's not going to help you. And I think another thing that people don't know is that not all questions on the Khan Academy are from the College Board. Now, some are, don't get me wrong, but not all of them. So again, if you didn't know that, your student would be practicing with some fake questions that don't follow the same College Board patterns. And in response to the College Board partnering with Khan Academy, ACT partnered with Kaplan, as I call it, keeping up with the Joneses, to offer some low-cost test prep. Now, what they're doing is they're offering it to all 8th through 11th graders at a very low cost. I think it's a couple $100s. You can get fee waivers if you apply for them and you qualify. But what you're going to find is that this particular Kaplan program is rife full of program ads It doesn't give any extra practicing, no personal coaching, and it's mainly an overview or the ins and outs of the ACT, which you can find that out on your own. And then what I find very interesting about this quote unquote low-cost test prep that they partnered with Kaplan is that they'll say, now to raise your score better, do a better job or raise your score higher, go on social media and ask your friends how they did it, or ask your counselors how they can help you raise your score. Well, counselors, number one, if counselors were helping you raise their score, then there would be no need for any test prep companies. But the fact that most counselors are overwhelmed anyways with changing schedules and dealing with discipline problems, they certainly barely can keep above the water, their head above water on their daily stuff, much less telling you how to raise your score. So it's very faulty advice that they're giving. And putting one more thing on the counselor, which the counselors don't have that kind of time anyways. All right, homeschooling secret number 5, be careful. Bad advice can cost you $100,000. I've heard so many things from well-meaning parents and well-meaning students or counselors that unfortunately it is a hindrance. It is a hindrance to the. Hello? Are we there? Okay. Fortunately, well-meaning friends and families can give wrong advice that can actually cost you money. One being that the PSAT, like I said earlier, is not important. A lot of people have missed out on it because they were told it's just a practice test. It really doesn't mean anything. Don't even worry about it. One of the biggest things that I continue to hear over and over again, and this mainly comes from, again, counselors who I do have many friends who are counselors, but a lot of times, they're very ignorant and they'll tell the students to wait until the end of the junior year. And then, that's when you can take your SATs because then you'll have all the math that you need. Well, if that would be true if it were a content-based test about what you know, but that wouldn't make any sense why a 7th grader would score higher than a junior or senior who hasn't even had high school math yet. Or they might say, well, it's too early to put this on my radar. I've got a 6th grader, I've got a 7th grader. I got too much time to think about that. But as I said, once you get into the high school years, what happens is students become very maxed out on their schedule with school, homework, part-time jobs, sports, friends. And then when you try to add one more thing to their plate, it's just overwhelming. And they tend to do very poorly on the test. And I've seen the endless cycle of them barely getting into a college and sometimes not even their dream college, and then being strapped with 20 years of college debt just because they didn't have a high enough score to get scholarship money. So again, it's never too early to put it on your radar. And then I heard something just recently, last year, where there was a well-meaning homeschooling mom who was telling everyone that homeschoolers no longer need the SAT. Well, not only is that not true, that is discrimination. And I think what's going to happen is the families that listen to this person are going to have a real shock when they go to apply for college, and they're going to ask them for their test scores, and they're going to say, well, we're homeschoolers, so we don't have to do it. And the college is going to say, well, au contraire, you need it more than anybody, because how else can we validate your transcript? How else can we, know that you didn't just make that stuff up? So we need that test score. And then another myth, of course, is people will say the SATs are going away and they're no longer going to be needed. Again, not true. Colleges need a standardized test score to compare everybody equally. It's the only fair way. Your student might take really hard classes and have a great GPA, and a student down the street has really easy classes and has the exact same GPA. So on paper, they look the same. So they have to have some common denominator that's common to all applicants. And that's why they use test scores like SATs and ACTs. All right, so let's talk about the nuts and bolts a little bit about the tests themselves. And again, this is wonderful for you out there because this covers everybody, whether you have a child who loves math and is good in math, or they don't like math and they just absolutely cringe at the thought of math. You don't have to be a math genius to ace the math section. It's not even a math test. It's a logic test using math as the medium. Again, they're testing the critical thinking skills on a math problem. And again, like I said earlier, some of my smartest math students had said to me that their SAT math section was the lowest score because they were used to doing everything the long way and showing all their work, and they ran out of time. But now they obviously learned that every question can be answered in 30 seconds or less and without a calculator. So what I've done over the years is taught the kids how to see the math and not do the math. So I'm going to show you a couple strategies and some patterns that the College Board uses. One strategy that we teach the kids is, something like, what is the product of these two numbers? Well, train your brain to always look at the last digits. So if we were to look at the last two digits here, we would see 2 and 3. We know that 2 times 3 is 6, so our answer is going to end in 6. Now notice only one answer ends in 6. So there was no calculations, there was no mistakes. This is a strategy that students can use not just for multiplying, but they can use it on dividing or adding or subtracting or properties. So it's just a really cool strategy. I got to do this one twice on national television, and it was really fun to stump celebrities when you can do something like this. This one here in the figure below, a square is inscribed in a circle with diameter S. What is the sum of the areas of the shaded regions in terms of S? Now, most students are going to look at this question and automatically start thinking geometry terms as far as pi r square and circumference and all that. But again, one of the patterns, this is why you cannot study for the SAT. You have to study the test itself, how the questions are written and how they write the answers. So one of the things that they do is when they write a math problem and they come up with the answer, they have to create wrong answer choices. So it only makes logical sense that the right answer contains elements of the wrong answer. So notice all of them have an S square, all of them have a minus sign, 2 of them have 1/2, and 2 of them have pi over 4. Now look at the answer choices. Tell me which one has something from everything else. Yes, good job. C is correct. And that is your answer. It's what I call clone invasion. It's one of the patterns on the SAT. Now they use different patterns, but this is one of them. So once students learn these patterns and they train their brain to look at a question, then very often they can just find the answer simply by noticing all the similarities in the answer choices. Now this question, the first 4 terms of a series are shown above. Which of the following could be the formula that gives the nth term of this sequence for all positive integers n? Now you've got a sequence at the top, and then you've got some answer choices. Now most students will start, what they'll do is they'll get stumped by wording of the question, formula. And they kind of start thinking, okay, what formula in school did I learn to figure this out? Well, there is no formula. This is a made-up question by the College Board. So what you have to do is, again, learn to study the patterns. Notice that from 3 to 6 is 3 numbers, 6 to 11 is 5 numbers, and 11 to 18 is 7 numbers. So notice here that the pattern is going up 2 digits every single time. So now look at our answer choices. Now, which answer has a +2? Awesome, good job. All right, D is correct. Again, we're seeing the math and not having to do the math. All right, let's talk about the reading section. And I love the fact that the reading section is not about reading. Again, a misnomer. It makes students want to take those reading passages and read them. Well, here's the problem. You get 6 passages, 52 questions, and 65 minutes to do it in. So we're talking a little over a minute per question, plus 6 passages. So again, there's no way that you'll be able to finish on time if you're doing it the normal way. And on top of that, they've got 3 types of passages and 5 types of questions. But here's the good news. You can skip up to 75% of the passage and still get every single question right. And I think one of the things is most students don't realize is they approach the SAT like they do a normal test at school. They'll read the question and start looking for the answers. That is not what you want to do. You want to read the question and eliminate the trick answers first. So I'm going to show you the 4 trick answers that the College Board uses on the line citation question. There are 5 types of questions, but the line citation question has the 4 hidden patterns every time. So how many of you out there, you or your student second guesses himself or overthinks the question? And you can put that in the chat box. This is a big, big complaint that I get, especially from a lot of students who are very, very smart. They're always trying to shoehorn something in to make it fit because they're overthinking it. Well, I'm going to show you the 4 tricks that the College Board uses in the citation question to make you do this. And it falls under my acronym COAT, C-O-A-T. So you might get an answer that's completely irrelevant to the question. It really has nothing to do with that particular question, although it might be relevant to another part of the passage. Or you may get an answer choice that's obscure, confusing, to where you really aren't quite sure what it even said. Or a student might receive an answer that adds some additional information, some extra stuff to make it sound good, but it really wasn't in the original information. Or they might get an answer choice that's totally contradictory, or it says the opposite. Now, once a student learns these 4 tricks that the College Board uses every single time, then they can learn to eliminate them first, and then the one answer that doesn't break any of these rules is the correct answer. So let me give you an example. Adam's grandmother neatly packed 2 snacks for him in his lunch sack. He couldn't wait to discover their identity because he knew they were always unique and yummy. The question, why does the author mention Adam's daily routine? A, to show how poor the family was and couldn't afford a lunchbox. Well, that's a little obscure, so we can eliminate that answer. To relay the grandmother's love for Adam. Now, this is a very tricky answer because, remember, these questions are purposely misleading and answers are very appealing, the wrong answers. And so you would think that the grandmother loves him. I mean, think about it. Every morning she's up on Pinterest and she's looking for unique snacks to make him. Well, obviously it's out of love, right? Well, we don't know the grandmother's motivation. So this is adding some additional information about her, but the question is asking about Adam, not the grandmother. Compare how a good lunch helps a student excel. Well, the College Board is notorious for throwing in very true statements that we've heard all our life. We know it's important to have a good breakfast, to do well in school, to have a good lunch. But even though that's true, that is completely irrelevant to the question. But to reveal how he being Adam, loved his grandmother's treats. And that, of course, is the correct answer. All right, now let's talk about the writing section. And again, going back to the fact that you don't have to be a grammar genius to do well in this section. As a matter of fact, you know, if you just know some basic grammar, you're going to be completely fine. So again, why do students do poorly in this section? Well, notice here, your students are going to be given 4 passages, 44 questions, and 35 minutes to do it in. So we're down to 47 seconds per question and 4 passages. The great thing, again, this is standardized tests, just use the same recurring patterns. There is a pattern on the test that I show that students can, that occurs as much as 75% of the time where you can answer the question in 10 seconds. Now, 47 seconds is not going to help you. But the good news is that you don't have to be a grammar genius, because they're only going to test you on 13 recurring grammar problems. When I analyzed the new SAT a couple years ago, and I went through all the test questions from the College Board, I found the same 13 problems that recurred. And students don't have to go back and go to elementary school and learn all grammar all over again. Just know the 13 problems that they're going to use. Sometimes the questions are going to ask them about style or reading comprehension or analysis. So this question here, you're going to notice that there's an underlined part from the passage. You'll have a passage, a part of it will be underlined, and then you have to read the underlined part. And then if there's nothing wrong with it, you're going to pick A, no change. And if there is a problem with it, you're going to have to find the answer. Now, going back to the fact that there's 47 seconds to do this in, you have to know that there's recurring patterns. In this particular case, it's what I call reverse clones. Notice, starts with the word when, ends with the word us. Notice in the answers, there's a couple whens and a couple us's. So which answer has both when and us? Exactly. C is correct. Again, one of the patterns that the test company uses on their test. And by the fact that it's a pattern and the fact that it's a standardized test means once they've created a pattern, they have to use the exact same patterns on every test. That is what makes it standardized. If they didn't, then it would be a random test, but they will always use the same patterns. All right, and in the excuse me, in the writing section, there are 2 words that are 100% wrong. So every time you see these words, whether it's in the underlined portion in the passage or in the answer choices, you can mark those answers off. And the 2 words are having and being. Sometimes you can eliminate 2 or even 3 answers because they contain either having or being. So know that this is a wrong answer 100% of the time. And like I said, there are 13 recurring grammar problems, and this is one of them. It's what I took all the 13 recurring grammar problems and I put them in an acronym called inside answers. So these ing words fall under the I in inside. And so anytime you see ing words, it's be leery of them. But if you see the word having and being, absolutely mark that answer off. Now, little secret that I have for the homeschooling, how to ace these tests, number 9, is to always write the optional SAT essay. Now, think about it, excuse me, as a parent, if you tell a child it's optional, what are they going to do? Probably not do it. Because it's like, well, the school doesn't care whether I write the essay or not. And by the way, you can get lists of schools that do require the SAT and the ACT essay. I have those links, I believe, in one of my books, or one of my e-readers. But for now, let me tell you why to always have your student write the optional essay. There are 4 reasons to write the essay. First reason is that it gives your student a complete profile. This is going to show their application, that they went all the way, did everything, and didn't leave anything blank. And this is not going to hinder your child's opportunity for scholarships. Number 2, there are colleges that will exempt your student from writing classes if they wrote the essay. Number 3, if a college admissions counselor is on the fence about your child's application, they'll use the writing essay as a determining factor. So if your child has a certain SAT score and another student has the same SAT score, and your child wrote the essay and their child did not, then they're going to go with your student to go for acceptance or scholarships or whatever they're offering. And then the last reason why you always want your student to write the essay is if, let's say, your student doesn't opt in and they go and take the SAT, they get an amazing score, they get the score they need to get into college and get the money they want, but then they find out that that particular college, or maybe they decide to go to another college, requires the essay, they now have to go back and take the SAT all over again. You can't just go write the essay. You must redo the whole entire SAT to be able to get to the essay because it's held at the end of the test. So one of the things is if you've already signed up your student on College Board website and you opted out of the essay, you can always opt in later. So when your child gets to the test and they've decided to take the essay, then as long as there's enough materials and there's room for them, they can still, go ahead and do the essay. I've got a proven template with 30 essay paragraphs that you can mix and match that are all taken from perfect essay scores. Many of my kids over the years have gotten perfect essays, and I've taken all the techniques and what the judges are looking for, and I've written these 30 different paragraphs that your child can actually learn to write and do some copy work and internalize it and know how to write a perfect scoring essay. And of course, why to always write the optional ACT essay? The exact same reasons to always write the SAT is same as the ACT essay. Now, interestingly enough, even though your child spent somewhere 40 minutes on the ACT and 50 minutes on the SAT writing these essays, these judges are going to spend around 30 seconds per essay grading them. It's crazy, and I have friends who are essay judges who've told me this. And what they do is they'll skim through the essays in a short amount of time, looking for a few key things, and give them, a score in 20 to 30 seconds. So they know what they're looking for. They know the keys to a perfect scoring essay. And there are 3,600 judges across this nation that will be grading your one of them will be grading your student's essay. And they know that these essays are very subjective. I mean, everybody writes differently. So they have an objective grading system that they use that they can actually spend the time looking at these essays in a short amount of time and seeing if they have these few key points to create a perfect scoring essay. All right, and number 10, guess what? Colleges are coveting homeschoolers. They are looking at kids. Some 25 years ago, when I first started homeschooling my kids, I'm like a lot of you who heard everything and all the objections that people had about homeschooling, as far as, aren't you worried about them getting it all? What about them getting into college? What about, aren't you worried about socialization? And I said, yes, I am. That's why we're homeschooling. And so nowadays, back then, being very new, I'm sure it was different. But right now, colleges are looking for your homeschoolers. Why? They are finding that they are very mature. It's not the 13th year to them. They don't have to babysit them. They're already coming to college with good study skills. They're very self-independent learners. They have higher test scores naturally. And this is a kind of a cool thing, but a non-homeschooler, the graduation rate is about 33%. Homeschoolers' graduation rate for college is almost 80%. So these colleges know that, and they know that they, of course, don't want to have all these dropout rates for statistics for their colleges. So they're looking for your students. And not only that, they're finding that when you have homeschoolers in your classroom, it makes for a more well-rounded, more diversified classroom. So they're looking for well-rounded students as well as well-rounded classrooms. Now I want to talk about my sort of bonus secret that for homeschoolers, and that is the CLT. We talked about the SAT, the ACT, and the PSAT, but there is actually a new kid in town, and there's a new, look out, there's a new sheriff in town, and that is the CLT. This is a brand new test that's only been around a couple years that is growing rapidly, that will probably ultimately be in all colleges. When I first met with the gentleman of the CLT, the founders, the genius minds behind it, they had told me they were looking to get into about 10% of the colleges, somewhere between 400 to 500 colleges But as I see the way it's growing, I can see it literally in Harvard, in Yale, MIT, Columbia, Princeton, and because they're looking for the best qualified applicants. And if you've got an amazing student who's taken the CLT and their school hasn't adopted it yet, they're more likely going to. Now, the difference in the CLT is that a student will use their own device. This is an alternative that has more rich content, more Western traditional values. So you're going to see passages from C.S. Lewis or Charles Dickens. Now, students will take the CLT on their own device, their own laptop or their own iPad, and instead of waiting weeks, they will have their results immediately. Now, what is the CLT being used for? Just like an SAT and ACT, it's being used for college entrance as well as scholarships. And there's right now close to 100 colleges that are accepting it, and it's just been around for about 2 years. And you'll see colleges like Patrick Henry, Liberty, Hillsdale, Bryan. The list goes on, and you can go to their website to find out more colleges. And the beautiful thing that I love, and I'm so honored that the gentleman of the CLT came to us and said, we at the CLT, or the Classic Learning Test, want to partner with CPG or College Prep Genius. You are the only test prep company that we are going to recommend. Well, I am so honored by that. I'm humbled by that. And I'm excited to talk about the fact that we are right now writing a solutions guide to their student guide. And then sometime in April or after, they are going to give us an actual retired CLT test and allow us to create a program specifically for the CLT. Now, it's very similar to the SAT and ACT, so most of the stuff in our program will already work on the CLT because there's a crossover information, but we will be writing a very, very specific one just for them. And to find out more, about the CLT, their website is cltexam.com. Now, I recommend that your student will go on there and take a practice test. If they use the code CPG18 for a practice test, then they will be entered into a contest for an Apple Watch. Now, if your student ends up taking an actual CLT and you use the code CPG18 where it says partner ID, then you can get 50% off your registration. So it would only cost them less than $25 to take the test. So it's pretty exciting. And one other thing, CLT 10, right now, if you have any sophomores out there, CLT 10, which will be held in April of this year, that is going to be equivalent to like a PSAT. They have partnered with the National Association of Scholars, and students who score, I believe it's a 108 or above on the CLT, which is equivalent to about a 1480 on the SAT and a 32 on the ACT, will go into sort of that National Association Scholarship Program and be very similar to the National Merit Scholarship Program. So definitely check into that. And by the way, if you don't have someone proctoring the CLT in your town or your state, you as a parent can proctor the CLT 10 in April at your own home for your own child, and it's completely free. So that gives them that opportunity to become that NAS scholarship contest winner, which can mean amazing scholarships for them. So do check into that. Now, why are scholarships tied directly to test scores? That is because of national rankings. Colleges will get their rankings based on test scores. So the higher your students score, the more money they're going to get because the colleges will go up on their rankings. You can go to the U.S. News and World Report rankings, and you'll notice that Princeton is now #1, Harvard is #2. Sometimes it's the opposite, but right now that's #1 and #2, and they are ranked that way because of their test scores. So when your student has a high test score, then that is going to elevate a college's test scores and raise their rankings, and so they're willing to, give amazing perks. 85% of colleges will admit and give scholarship money simply based on a test score. So that's why they're willing to roll out that red carpet and give them full ride, tuition, room and board, and all those things that we've talked about. So what's the bottom line here? The bottom line is make test prep priority. It literally can determine where your child gets to go to college and who's going to pay. You don't want your child strapped with 20 years of college loans or to be $100,000 in debt, but to have a clean slate when they walk out of college and to have that degree of their choice. I know there's a lot of people out there. I read a lot of bloggers and a lot of things about people telling believers and homeschoolers to not to go to college. And I know that college is not for everyone, but if we as a believer or we as someone who homeschools our kids because we have a different mindset and how we want them educated, if we don't have them in upper level careers like doctors, lawyers, engineers, teachers, then who are going to be the people that will be the leadership of tomorrow? And so we need our kids in those kind of positions and to earn those kind of degrees. So I think certainly there are people who won't go to college or they shouldn't go to college, and that's totally fine. But I'm a big believer in not telling everyone to not go to college, because nobody knows what plans that they have for each child, or what each child has planned, or what God has planned for them. So that's why it's important, that we follow what's best for us, not just someone's opinion. Although, a lot of things that they say may be true. So the thing I heard just a week ago, I was listening to the radio, and they said a student with a bachelor's degree will earn 182% more money per week than someone who has just a high school diploma. So again, earning power, money is not evil. It's what we do with it, what's important. So what can College Prep Genius do for you? I'm so excited to partner with the Homeschool Buyers Co-op. They're amazing people, and I love them. And so we've put together, a special. So what can my program, College Prep Genius, do for you? And again, don't take my word for it. Read independent reviews, on the website, or go watch some TV shows, and just see what people are saying, or my YouTube channel. But we have taught the kids how they can cut their time in half, not having to read every word, not having to work out long calculations. We show them why the right answers are right, but we also show them why the wrong ones are wrong. That way they can correct the mistakes. If they're falling for the same tricks again and again, we want them to know that, so they have plenty of time to change how they approach the question so they don't fall for the trick answers. Many of our kids have raised their score 600 points, or gone to Ivy Leagues for free, or become National Merit Scholars. And the beauty of homeschooling is if you incorporate test prep daily, you can use it as an elective on your transcript. You can call it test prep, or test skills, or life skills, but you can give a credit for your child for that. If they do it in a semester, you can give them a half a credit. If you do it, continue through the year, you can give them a full credit. And I just showed you a couple little strategies. We have over 200, I think it's over 300, but 200 plus strategies, shortcuts, tips, ideas of how your kids can ace these type of tests. So your students can ace this test. These are beatable tests. They are learnable. It's like most things in life. For some kids, it might come easier. They might be naturally logically minded, but other students can train their brain to think logically. It's really a matter of learning the hidden patterns, learning how to identify the logical patterns and answer choices that they use over and over again, knowing that starting early is so important. It's unfortunately, I will get people who call us the week before the test, and they're scrambling to try to start the program. I want to say to them, does your child play piano or guitar, or play an instrument or play sports? I mean, do you learn the sport the week before the championship? Do you learn a couple chords on the piano, and do you learn to play Beethoven the next week? Test prep is no different. It's something that you can learn, and you can beat the test, but there's so much to it, and you've got to solidify the information. You've got to internalize the strategies, and that certainly takes time. There is no instant success. You cannot shortcut the shortcut. And so we're giving you the shortcut, but the students have to do the work to be able to learn how to identify the questions. My 5 P's of success are proper preparation, prevents poor performance. So you can put that on your refrigerator for your kiddos, no matter what they're doing. Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Hey, Jean.
Yes.
So I think we have about 6 minutes left to the
Okay.
webinar.
All right.
And
We're at the
so,
end.
yeah, so maybe a few questions.
Okay,
Um,
sure. Let's get
and
to the, yeah, I love it.
yes, thank you for the kind words about the Homeschool Buyers Co-op as well. And thank you everyone for attending this. We hope you found it to be beneficial. So there are a few questions I'll roll up, and that is there will be the recorded session. It will be posted on our webinars, archive webinars page. So you'll be able to re-listen or go back and take some of the notes. And then let's start with this question from Holly. So do some schools only take one test, or will they be able to convert them if the student only takes one test?
Okay, so you're still breaking up a little bit, but I think what you said was, are there some schools that only take one? Every college, 100% of colleges take SAT or ACT, so it doesn't matter. And some of them will convert the score. So, you know, and some of them will take either a score or they'll convert it, so it doesn't matter. But it really makes no difference which school you go to.
Okay. Here's a question on person has a member has a sixth grader. Could you repeat the information about the PSAT? I thought you said there was a different version for younger kids. What product would you recommend for him from your website?
Okay, so the PSAT for the younger kids, you could take the PSAT 8 and 9. It's offered at schools, sometimes in the spring, sometimes in the fall. You just need to call around your local schools because it's not listed on the College Board website. It's the exact same program. They're going to use the exact same type of questions. So there's no need to have a different program. When you're preparing for one, you're basically over preparing for the other.
Okay. And then one of our moms asks, what if we already missed the PSAT? I have a junior now who did not take it.
Okay, so you have a junior that hasn't missed I'm sorry, a junior that missed the PSAT?
Yes.
Okay, so I have some really great news for you. This is a little known secret. I talk about it in my program. Most people have never heard of this. And I even had a confrontation on Facebook where a lady had some prep company and she was all into these counselors association. And she said, this is not true. And I said, you know what? Call the College Board. And she did. And this is a little known secret. So if you have a junior that missed the PSAT last October, there is what's called the alternate entry testing method. And what that is you as a parent will call the College Board, call the National Merit Corporation, and you've got to do it by April 1 and let them know that your student did not take the PSAT. Then they have the opportunity to take all the SATs of that year and they'll convert the score. So the fact that it's now February, your student can actually take the March, the May, and the June SAT in exchange for the PSAT. And what's really cool about that, they'll take the highest score. So they have 3 more opportunities to become a National Merit Scholar. So you've got to call the National Merit Corporation, and they're going to tell you, they'll send you a card, and then when you sign up, you'll use the code 0085.
Okay, great. Just a general question, are the SAT or ACT ever offered via the internet?
Okay, so you totally broke up, sorry.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Kind of.
Yeah, so a question on if the SAT or ACT is taken via the internet.
Can you take the internet? No, it is on pencil and paper.
Yes, okay. All right, I'm just skimming through the questions.
And I posted our special that you have, the Homeschool Buyers Co-op special for our comprehensive, which, by the way, we got it the first time in 14 years. But you can take advantage for $189. You can take advantage of it on their special for $126.99. Plus, you get 1,500 smart points. So here's it ends on February 28th, and you need to redeem the code in 30 days. So here is the link to it, or you can go to the Homeschool Buyers Co-op website.
Okay, so let me try and get another question in. My son, can you hear me, Jean?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
my son was a National Merit Scholar, but we found that most of the schools he was interested in, state schools mostly, did not give anything for national merit. It seems to be losing advantage for many schools. Have you found that to be the case?
Okay, so I only got every other word.
Okay, I'm going to copy it here.
Let me try to go to the chat. Maybe I can see it in the chat if I go to it. Okay. So I think I heard there was a national merit, their students a national merit scholar. Well, if they will email me personally, I will send them links to, I mean, there's so many schools that will give you unbelievable perks. And I have I think it's the link collegeprepgenius.com/national merit schools. It will list all the colleges and how many minimum national merit scholars they want. So for example, I know that Baylor wants 35. So, but it will list them. So if you can send me an email, I can certainly send you that link as well as more information.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. And thank you again for participating in our webinar. Jean, thank you so much. And everybody have a great day.
Thank you.